A high-pitched cry for help by problematic _ Lana on AO3. Chapter 27. Can I sleep now? Shouta was fascinated. There was no denying that his son was incredibly smart. But to make suggestions to a pro hero at the ripe age of 6? Incredible. Currently, doing paperwork in the office with his detective friend, he had spent the first 3 hours of his shift reading what his kid gave him. Admittedly, there were parts where you could tell a kid wrote the analysis, mainly because of the childish handwriting, or the drawings, or the lack of specific words to describe things. But all in all, he fully understood why Nezu was so fixed on him. With the right guidance, the kid could easily be a great strategist. But with the wrong guidance, hopefully they would never know. There were some suggestions that he was surprised he never thought about himself. Just slight changes that would make his fights a bit more comfortable or give him a bit of an advantage. Tying his hair to not show his quirk was activated, including night vision on his goggles, and even making some type of humidifier system to avoid his dry eye. He was currently reading about specific movements he could include while fighting. Funny enough, some of them already existed, which only reinforced the idea of how great the analysis was. Shouta was especially interested in those that indicated his capture weapon. They weren't necessarily complicated moves, but instead ones that favored the weight of the scarf to make him not focus on the attack. He was about to finish reading when Namasa came running, his face filled with determination. There was finally movement on the container, and with just that moment's notice, everyone started to get ready and run from one place to another. Shouta couldn't stop his heart rate from going up with just the idea of getting a resolution for his kid. He knew Hisashi was most probably going to be there as the one in charge of the unit, and even in charge of whatever operations they were doing. He needed to get the man behind bars to get some closure. He didn't even care what type of crime it was, as long as it assured him that he would never be able to touch his bunny again. For the first time in his whole career, he knew he was way too involved in the case to be rational, and for the first time, he didn't care. When the other pro heroes got to the place and made a quick plan to close the place down without anyone escaping, they went straight to action. The plan was simple: surround them and try to catch every one of them. The problem? They did not believe there would be more than 4 or 5 people at best. It seems that there was no intention of keeping themselves hidden, as that many suspicious men at that hour would obviously catch some attention. There were at least 13 men, from which they only knew the quirks of 2. Even worse, there were only 3 heroes available at such a short notice. A rookie, a limelight hero. Both of them had hardly met Shouta before, too. Just great. They divided themselves, the rookie, known as Rock Lock, and the limelight hero, known as Eggshot, went together to the front of the building to wait for the signal. Shouta, on the other hand, was going to the back to force his way in and take a look at what it was they were moving into the container. With his set of skills, it didn't take him longer than 10 minutes to get in unnoticed and to look at things from above. The picture was a dark and blurry one. Most people inside were running from one place to another, bringing carefully mini freezers that could not be heavy enough for 2 people that would bring it in. It was obvious whatever they were trafficking, and Shouta decided to not indulge too much on what was possibly inside that needed refrigeration and was so small. There were at least 10 or 15 of those mini freezers inside where they stopped running around and finally settled inside. Most probably waiting for the buyer. There are only 2 doors. Barricade the front one and get the police cars to surround the back one, murmured the Eraser hero through the transmitter. I will knock the closest ones and bring the rest to you by going through the back. Lock the front door and try to touch as many as you can and lock their clothes in to immobilize them. Thankfully, his teammates decided to just go and not argue. None of them really were a man for many words. He clicked his tongue then realized that Hisashi was nowhere to be seen, probably being the main link to the buyer and doing the business, while the rest did the dirty stuff. He prepared himself for just a second, and then jumped from the ceiling beam where he was hidden. As planned, he landed atop of one of them, knocking him out before he even tried to fight back. The sound immediately alerted the rest. In a matter of seconds, he was jumped straight into action. It seemed that only 3 of them had a mutation quirk that he could not use his own against. So, he went first to the closest 2 and tangled his capture weapon around them to knock them out against each other. One of them, with a quirk that resembled jello and cuffed. The other one who was then left on the floor unconscious and full of orange goo. I'm guessing that none of you want to turn yourselves in? He mocked when all of them tried to circle them. Okay then. Using a scarf as a lasso, he warped to the beam and used it to hold his weight up and kick another one to the chest. This one had an obvious eye-related quirk, so cringing at the thought of him being in a receiving end, he used the sand to blind him, long enough to crash his face to the ground, and not getting to know anything else about his quirk. A flying torn grazed his side, barely having enough time to not get stabbed right in the stomach. Looking back, he saw a man and soon realized that it wasn't a torn, but his very own sharp piece of bone that he was throwing. He jumped back to avoid another one, and another, and another. A mutation quirk for sure, as Aizawa didn't get him to stop that easily. Using another man as a shield, he protected himself once again, jumped up to avoid the situation. With 4 down, he decided it was time to make his exit to the back of the container. He didn't need to pretend to struggle to get back up, because he actually was. In between the goo in his shoes, the flying bones, and the guy with the suspicious gas quirk, he barely made it to the door, covering his face as much as possible, not wanting to know what the gas was for. He made it to the door, and Rocklock and Eggshot, sparring right into action. Eggshot goes straight for the mutation quirk types, saving Shouta some trouble, and Rocklock tries to get as many as possible. But after a number of villains are locked, to lock another one, someone else gets set free. They are still outnumbered, but the plan seemed to work well enough to take some more down with minimal damage. With quirks out of the way, Shouta is left with a semi-damaged capture weapon and skilled against brute force. The results are just according to his calculations, up until he hears a deep, hurt growl come from Rocklock that distracts him. It's just half a second he loses focus, but it's more than enough to feel himself engulfed by an infuriating pain on his left arm. He stepped back as fast as possible, but the damage is done. Part of his hero suit disintegrated, and his entire arm, up raw and bleeding, takes away some mobility and speed, and Shouta knows he fucked up. I swear, you little stupid heroes just can't mind your own fucking business. A roar-like voice makes him look away from the nasty wound and up to a man just a few inches taller than him. Y'all look fucking homeless too. He snarls, getting closer again, smoke coming out of his mouth. It clicks instantly. This is the piece of shit Shouta was looking for. Midoriya Hisashi. The same man that he was sure was the artist behind Izuku's huge back scar. The same man that let him off to starve and put him in a hospital. The same man that appears in his little boy's nightmares most nights. He doesn't look like the pictures. He looks beat up and confident all the same, and the pro hero feels nauseous when he recognizes his son's freckles in the man's face. He is nothing like his son. He will never be. How many warnings to leave us alone do you need? At this point, I think you want me to kill you. That is a lot of talk for someone with 15 men that cannot take on 3. He lets out. The pain in his voice is clear, but he keeps his stance. Yeah, you like to take the trash from me anyways. Right, hobo? Another fire breath comes his way, but this time he dodges, his movements slower than usual. My old house, my stupid wife, my worthless kid, and now my useless team. God damn! I can have shit now, can I? You want my dirty laundry too? So, you did kill her, he states, fully aware that a confession on his body cam would be a cherry on top once he takes him out. Didn't have to. She refused to work, and my other doctors got pissed off. You can meet her later. A huge fireball comes his way, and he dives low, but still catches it. The realization hits him like a truck. She refused to work. She was a nurse. Freezer containers? They were trafficking organs. He doesn't have time to digest the information, as coming through the fire comes a kick to the stomach that throws him off, landing on his back next to an unconscious Rocklock. Fuck. His body screams in agony, and Shouta pushes the pain aside. Rolling in the ground, he evades another kick, right where his head was. Immediately, Eraserhead uses a rock kick to force himself back up, trying to move Hisashi away from the fallen hero, as well as dodging every punch and fire breath. As his own breath starts to pick up, he knows he's far too tired and wounded to take a more aggressive stance and claim victory. With Rocklock out of service and Egg Shot out of range and fully occupied, his mind starts to run for a better answer. As much as he is dodging most punches, so is Hisashi. With every blow thrown his way, he knows he is getting slower and predictable, and he hates his body for failing him now, when his head wanted more revenge than justice. He can barely block his quirk for a second at a time, and Hisashi picks up on his use of his fire when his hair is down far too quickly. Another fire breath, and then he's tackled to the ground. All air escapes him, as a direct blow to his head covers his eyes in blood, completely losing focus of the situation for longer than he wished to admit. He can feel the weight of the man on top of him, and his hands wrap around his neck to block his airways. Even as he chokes, and the lack of air builds up pressure on his head, he can only think of one thing. That night that Izuku had a nightmare, Aizawa was there to calm him down, and stood there, eyes stringing, as his son narrated for the first time his nightmare. This was his nightmare. It was about the day he got his quirk, and a traumatic event that led to it. Izuku fully believed that his father was about to kill him in the same way that he was trying to do with him now. Aizawa is furious. How dare he put Izuku through the exact same thing? His lovely, clever, and shy kid. The kid had opened his heart to another set of adults even after everyone in his life had failed him. That kid that had made him promise to always come back home for a mission. That same kid that would fight off the sleeplessness just to try and see Aizawa come back from patrol. He promised he would always come back home, and he was not one to break a promise. With what little strength he had left, he did the only thing that came to mind. He looped his capture weapon to a light pole, and then, from the back to Hisashi's chin, he pulled back with all his might, hoping that Izuku was right about his analysis. A strangled noise was all he heard as the air re-entered his lungs. Hisashi stared back, close to the pole, and backed away from Shouta just long enough for him to get back to his shaking legs. Still holding on to his scarf, he waited for the natural reaction to put his hands to his throat, to take it off, and to make another loop to secure one hand around his own neck, and another to tie him to the pole. I can't believe that worked. He barely avoided fire breath, that he had no clear aim, and close the distance between them. "See you in court," said the underground hero, with a lopsided, bloody smile, and before getting questioned by the choking man, he smashed his head against the light pole, enough to shake the structure and break the light bulb from above. With the man out like a light, ironic indeed, he let himself fall to the ground and waited for paramedics. Apparently, he moved a lot further away from his fellow partners during the fight. It was okay. He could wait a few more minutes before going home. Maybe he could smash his head a few more times while no one was watching. Damn, the body cam. Well, I guess a nap would have to do the trick. Okay, alright. Would you look at that? He's caught. Fuck him. Okay, so yeah, as I said, very, very big stuff like trafficking organs. Honestly, I should have seen that coming. The simple fact that the head chop was so precise should have alerted me. At first I thought serial killer, because I'm thinking, obviously practical terms, right? I'm not thinking, okay, this is someone who clearly has an operation. It's not just, serial killer. I was not thinking about that. And the fact that they were, what's it called? Threatening. Sorry, I'm running on zero sleep right now. Threatening, obviously everybody who kept trying to get involved. It screamed there is something else other than just a murder here. And I don't know why I didn't pick up on the fact that it was, trafficking of organs, specifically, trafficking of organs. It should have made sense. Inko was a nurse. I should have linked that. Maybe not that part, but I should have linked at least a part of, the decapitation, and how precise it was, with the fact that, okay, this was definitely made by a medical professional. Which, I'm glad that Aizawa in this chapter kept his promise to Izuku. We love that. We love a guy who can keep their promises. I'm just glad that everything's safe. So I feel like the next couple chapters is just gonna be, settling down and, the wrap-up. Which, unfortunately, we're so close to, the end of this. If I am correct, the next fanfiction to take over this is a Shingeki fanfic. It is a Shingeki fanfic, I believe. I am not 100% sure, but it is what's on my roster, and hopefully it doesn't, I don't find out other reasons on why I can't do it. So, as always, my raindrops, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Link to my Discord server and socials are down in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.